So, the paper we're diving into today is Kinderen van Oedipus by Stephen Vlian. Quite the poetic title, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's actually, well, what first jumps out at me is how the paper uses this Oedipus myth as a kind of metaphor. I mean, basically, Vlian is trying to explore the way individuals and societies lose their original kind of innocence or harmony with, like, nature, and how this gets disrupted by structures of, control and ego.
Right. And I think the core question, if you try to pin it down, is something like, what happens, psychologically and collectively, when we move from a natural, almost childlike state of unity with our environment into this world dominated by ego, rules, and, artificial constructs? Why do we freeze up emotionally and start living inauthentic lives? It's big, but very existential.
It totally is. And Vlian breaks it down almost into seasons or phases. First, there's this origin. He calls it the Zomer vol Liefde, the summer full of love, where people are at one with nature and everything flows. There's no division between self and world. But then things get cloudy, like Wolken voor de zon, clouds before the sun. The ego creeps in, and suddenly there's conflict, power, suppression, kind of like colonization, if you want to extend the metaphor.
That metaphor is not subtle. He even mentions the conquest of paradise. All of a sudden, what was flowing naturally gets, well, frozen. Vlian talks about this freezing as a psychological thing. We lock down our creative, libidinal energy so the ego can be in control. The winter of fear. It's dramatic, but I think it lands.
Yeah, and what's really clever is how he ties it to, like, social structures, too. Not just individuals, but whole societies become these systems where life, labor, and even affection gets regulated like ice cubes you can pile up on one side and withhold from the other. Inequality is, in a way, only possible once things are frozen, right? Before that, everything would just flow.
And then comes the idea of ontoyen, melting the ice. Like, even though ego tries to keep everything in its grip, there's always this pressure from underneath, wanting to break free. Vlian uses the image of traumatized animals being rehabilitated on social media, which, bit of a digression, but it made me think of those videos with rescue dogs. You know, where they're all scared and withdrawn, and then gradually, with kindness, they relax and become, well, themselves again.
Those get me every time. But yeah, his point's that love, or warmth, is kind of irrepressible. Even the ice world of the ego must eventually melt, because you can't actually suppress the natural flow forever. It takes effort, like way more energy to keep water frozen in a desert than to let it melt. Almost anti-capitalist, if you ask me.
There's definitely that political edge. When things thaw, people start sharing again. Inequalities dissolve. He even uses the phrase kommunistische Psychodynamik. But he's not prescribing a system. It's more like a longing for an organic or anarchic return to wholeness. The wheel turns and we end up, well, back where we started, united with the Mutter, or Mother Nature.
And it's not like he's claiming this is absolute truth. He talks about it as a lens, a metaphor, for understanding things like trauma, inequality, and healing, both personally and collectively. It's, open to interpretation.
Which, actually, is kind of reassuring, because, you don't have to take away some final answer. It's more about recognizing these cycles, seeing where in the season you might be, and, I suppose, not losing hope that warmth and connection come back, even after a long winter.
Or at least that we don't all have to stay frozen, right? Academic ideas like these, they aren't dogma, but invitations to explore. And sometimes, I think, getting a bit poetic is the only way to get at the really messy stuff within us.
Agreed. Maybe life really is just a circle. Or maybe it's like a melting ice cube that just wants to be a river again.
That was, almost profound.
Almost.